We have the catfish to cottids, so the catfishes, ictaluridae, to cottids, which are the sculpins. So we'll start with the catfish. Order Siluriformes, family Ictaluridae. They're very diverse. There are 31 families, 2,600 species, and many are concentrated in tropical areas and in South America. In North America, we have 45 species of catfish. 4 in Montana, 2 are native, the channel cat and the stone cat. 2 are non-native, yellow and black bullheads. They're nest spawners. The males guard. The noodling of fish from spawning nests is a common thing to do when the fish are larger usually. It's basically just sticking your arm in the nest that's usually in the side of a river, having the catfish bite down on your arm or on your hand and then pulling it out. Family characteristics, they're scaleless. They do have an adipose fin. They have 4 pairs of barbels, 2 on their snout, 2 whiskers on the tips of their maxilla, plus 4 chin barbels. And they have a very stout pectoral and dorsal spine. The channel catfish, Ictalurus punctatus, has a deeply forked caudal fin and peppered spots on its body. Those will be the things you'll use to identify this catfish. They're the largest and most important catfish to sport fishermen in Montana. They can grow up to 30 pounds in Montana. They're native. They forage on any animal and some plants, alive or dead. Channel cats are considered to be from the southeastern U.S., and you think of them as warm water fish, but they're actually fairly common in eastern Montana, the lower Yellowstone, and throughout the upper Missouri in large river habitats, and they're associated in some small tributary streams. Note their deeply forked caudal fin and long barbels that extend past their operculum. Next, the yellow bullhead. Both bullheads are non-native catfishes, and they're now found across Montana in isolated spots, and we'll show the distribution on the next slide. They're common in small, turbid streams and ponds. The black bullhead is the most common bullhead, mostly in eastern Montana. Note the differences in the serration on the spine and the pectoral fin, the difference in anal fin length, and the color of the barbels that are key differences between the yellow bullhead and the black bullhead. So yellow bullhead are isolated to the areas shown here, including areas off of the Yellowstone River, up above Glasgow, and near Kalispell, south of Kalispell. Black bullhead is largely more through the Yellowstone River, upstream of Fort Peck Reservoir, and then also a very isolated pocket just north of Kalispell. The stone cat is native. They seldom exceed 8 to 10 inches. Now you can tell the difference between a stone cat and all of the other catfish we've talked about so far is that their adipose fin is attached. So if you put a piece of paper behind the back of their adipose fin, you would not be able to slip it under at all, while the other two, their adipose fin is detached, similar to attached and detached earlobes. They have an expanding range in colder trout streams that may be warming, according to the Montana Field Guide website. They're widespread in eastern Montana, and they're even found in cool trout rivers like the Madison. Now moving on to the sculpins, family Cottidae. They're small bottom dwellers without swim bladders. They're primarily a marine family with about 300 species. In Montana, we have 4 native species. They're taxonomically pretty difficult. They occupy riffle areas in streams, spawn in the spring on underside of stones, and those nests are guarded by males. Their family characteristics include having a double dorsal fin, the first one being spiny and the second soft. They have large flattened heads, a large mouth without barbels, large rounded pectoral fins, and the scales can be embedded, absent, and modified into prickles. So this is just a page showing the differences in sculpin Most of them are marine, which are represented by the top 3 sculpin pictures, and then some others are freshwater, like the one here, which is the Bear Lake sculpin. If you want to see more about sculpins of the West, you can click on this in your PowerPoint to go to that website. First, we have the mottled sculpin. The 2 most common species are the mottled and the slimy sculpin. Mottles are found east of the divide and slimy to the west. They're distinguished by presence or absence of palatine teeth in the mouth and by the number of rays in the pectoral fins. Some keys show that all of the lateral line is complete in the mottled and incomplete in slimy, but in the mottled, this can be quite variable, so it's not a very definitive characteristic. Since the differences in the 2 species requires looking into the mouth, you won't be asked to ID any sculpin species. However, you should be able to ID a picture or a specimen, as in it's in the sculpin family, and be able to state which is the most common species east and west of the divide. In circled areas, the short-head sculpin on the next slide overlaps with the new cedar sculpin, so still some work to do there. Here's an example of a slimy sculpin up from the coastal plains in Alaska. Next, we have the torrent sculpin and the spoonhead sculpin. These are both species of special concern in Montana. These are 2 other species that have a very limited distribution, so look at the specimens, but you won't be asked to ID them. Torrents are in the Kootenai River drainage, way up in northwestern Montana, and spoonheads are in the Saskatchewan drainage near Glacier. You should know the distributions of all the sculpin, so if I ask you where they are located in Montana, you should be able to draw a circle on a map. The cedar sculpin is distinct from slimy. It was first described in 2014. Their distribution overlaps that of some of the slimy's territory, and as you can see, it has characteristics of both mottled and slimy sculpin. We don't have any specimens in our collection. It was noted during the collection that there was a larger bodied sculpin, and biologists just figured it was a large slimy or short head sculpin. But closer inspection showed that it was neither, and genetics confirmed that it was a new, unique species. You should read this article showing the description of the cedar sculpin here. So to remember for the sculpins, distinguishing features of the family, so you should be able to ID a specimen from this family, the 2 most common species and their distribution, and which species are of special concern and their distribution. Next, we have the trout perch, family Percopsidae. They look like a trout and a perch combo. They have ctenoid scales, but they have an adipose fin, a single dorsal fin with spines, and they're only in the Saskatchewan River drainage, in lakes and large rivers, and they're a species of concern in Montana. They are a spring broadcast spawner and spawn in rocky shores of lakes. They're nocturnal and eat insects and crustaceans. The largest specimen is 6 inches. The Northern Plains killifish is non-native. The original introduction was into the Bighorn River in Wyoming. Killifish are a common species in North America, and pupfish are part of that family. Some of you may have heard of the desert pupfish before. Some question about whether or not they're native, but we're considering them non-native. Plains killifish are found as far south as Texas and are common in Midwestern streams. And then finally, we have the brook stickleback, family Gasterosteidae. They're in slow water in small streams and on lake shorelines. The males are nest builders. Sticklebacks are an interesting family, and we probably know more about them than any other group besides salmonids. Their unique nest-building behavior, abundance across small streams and ponds in North America, as well as in Eurasia, make them easy to observe and readily adapt to a lab, so there are lots of studies on them. you should click on this link to YouTube to show their nest building behavior. Our stickleback, or the brook stickleback, they have 5 spines on their dorsal side and also a very, very thin caudal peduncle. They're mostly restricted to northeastern Montana. So that's all we have for the catfishes to cottids. You have one last video lecture that will be going over the bass and sunfish in Montana, or family Percidae.